Everybody, welcome back. We are reading the Bible and we are on Exodus chapter 4. However, Moses in answering said, "But suppose they do not believe me and do not listen to my voice, because they are going to say, 'Jehovah did not appear to you.' Then Jehovah said to him, 'What is it that in your hand? What is that in your hand?' To which he said, 'A rod.' Next he said, 'Throw it on the earth.' So he threw it on the earth, and it became a serpent. And Moses began to flee from it. Jehovah now said to Moses, 'Thrust your hand out and grab hold of it by the tail.' So he thrust his hand out and grabbed hold of it, and it became a rod in his palm, in order that, to quote him, they may believe that Jehovah, the God of their forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Then Jehovah said to him once more, 'Stick your hand, please, into the upper fold of your garment.' So he stuck his hand into the upper fold of his garment. When he drew it out, why, here his hand was stricken with leprosy like snow. After that he said, 'Return your hand into the upper fold of your garment.' So he returned his hand into the upper fold of his garment. When he drew it out of the upper fold of his garment, why, here it was restored like the rest of his flesh. And it must occur that, to quote him, if they will not believe you and will not listen to the voice of the first sign, they will certainly believe the voice of the later sign. Still, it must occur that if they will not believe even these two signs, and will not listen to your voice, then you will have to take some water from the Nile River, pour it out on the dry land, and the water that you will take from the Nile River will certainly become, yes, it will indeed become blood on the dry land." Moses now said to Jehovah, "Excuse me, Jehovah, but I am not a fluent speaker, neither since yesterday, nor since before that, nor since your speaking to your servant. For I am slow of mouth and slow of tongue." At that Jehovah said to him, "Who appointed a mouth for man, or who appoints the speechless, or the deaf, or the clear-sighted, or the blind? Is it not I, Jehovah? So now go, and I myself shall prove to be with your mouth, and I will teach you what you ought to say." But he said, "Excuse me, Jehovah, but send please by the hand of the one whom you are going to send." Then Jehovah's anger grew hot against Moses, and he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I do know that he can really speak, and besides, here he is on his way out to meet you. When he does see you, he will certainly rejoice in his heart. And you must speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I myself shall prove to be with your mouth and his mouth, and I will teach you men what you are to do. And he must speak for you to the people, and it must occur that he will serve as a mouth to you, and you will serve as God to him. And this rod you will take in your hand, that you may perform the signs with it." Accordingly Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "I want to go, please, and return to my brothers who are in Egypt, that I may see whether they are still alive." So Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." After that Jehovah said to Moses in Midian, "Go, return to Egypt, because all the men who were hunting for your soul are dead." Then Moses took his wife and his sons and made them ride on an ass, and he proceeded to return to the land of Egypt. Moreover, Moses took the rod over the true God in his hand. And Jehovah went on to say to Moses, "After you have gone and returned to Egypt, see that you actually perform all the miracles that I have put in your hand before Pharaoh. As for me, I shall let his heart become obstinate. And he will not send the people away. And you must say to Pharaoh, 'This is what Jehovah has said. Israel is my son, my firstborn. And I say to you, send my son away that he may serve me. But should you refuse to send him away, here I am killing your son, your firstborn.'" Now it came about on that road at the lodging place that Jehovah got to meet him, and kept looking for a way to put him to death. Finally Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin, and caused it to touch his feet, and said, "It is because you are a bridegroom of the blood to me." Consequently, he let go of him. At that time, she said, a bridegroom of blood, because of the circumcision. Then Jehovah said to Aaron, go to meet Moses into the wilderness. With that, he went and met him in the mountain of the true God, and kissed him. And Moses proceeded to tell Aaron all the words of Jehovah, who had sent him, and all the signs that he had commanded him to do. After that, Moses and Aaron went and gathered all the older men and the sons of Israel. Then Aaron spoke all the words that Joseph had spoke to Moses, and he performed the signs under the eyes of the people. At this the people believed. Then when they heard that Jehovah had turned his attention to the sons of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed down and prostrated themselves. Exodus 5. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and proceeded to say to Pharaoh, this is what Jehovah the God of Israel has said. Send my people away that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh said, who is Jehovah, so that I should obey his voice to send Israel away? I do not know Jehovah at all, and what is more, I am not going to send Israel away. However, they went on to say, the God of the Hebrews has come in touch with us. We want to go, please, a journey of 3 days into the wilderness, and sacrifice to Jehovah our God. Otherwise he may strike at us with pestilence or with sword. At this the king of Egypt said to them, why is it, Moses and Aaron, that you cause the people to leave off from their works? Go bearing your burdens. And Pharaoh continued, look, the people of the land are now many, and you indeed make them desist from their bearing of burdens. Immediately on that day Pharaoh commanded that those who drove the people to work and their officers, saying, you must not gather straw to give to the people to make bricks, as formerly. Let themselves go and gather the straw for themselves. It's making their labor even harder. Let themselves go and gather the straw. Moreover, the required amount of bricks that they were making formerly, you will further impose on them. So he doubles their workload. You must not make any reduction for them, because they are relaxing. That is why they are crying out, saying, we want to go, we want to sacrifice to our God. Let the service be heavy upon the men, and let them work at it, and let them not pay attention to false words. So those who drove the people to work and their officers went out and said to the people, here is what Pharaoh has said, I am giving you no more straw. You yourselves go get the straw for yourselves wherever you may find it, because there is to be no reducing of your services one bit. Consequently, the people scattered about over the land of Egypt to gather subsol for straw. And those who drove them to work kept urging them, saying, finish your works, each one his work, day for day, just as when the straw was available. Sounds like a lot of managers. Psst. Later on, the officers of the sons of Israel, whom Pharaoh taskmasters had set over them, were beaten, these saying, why is it you did not finish your prescribed task in making bricks as formerly, both yesterday and today? Consequently, the officers of the sons of Israel went in and began to cry out to Pharaoh, saying, why do you deal this way with your servants? There is no straw given to your servants, and yet they are saying to us, make bricks. And there your servants are beaten, whereas your own people are at fault. But he said, you are relaxing. You are relaxing. Think about that. There's so many minimum wage workers who get no time in relaxing. So many people in the slave industry who don't get to relax at all. Makes you really think. That is why you are saying, we want to go, we want to sacrifice to Jehovah, and now go serve, though no straw will be given to you, yet you are to give the fixed amount of bricks. Then the officers of the sons of Israel saw themselves in an evil plight at the saying, You must not deduct from your bricks one bit of anyone's daily rate." After that they encountered Moses and Aaron, who were standing there to meet them. As they came out from Pharaoh, at once they said to them, "May Jehovah look upon you and judge, since you have made us smell offensive before Pharaoh and before his servants, so as to put a sword in their hand to kill us." Then Moses turned to Jehovah and said, "Jehovah, why have you caused evil to this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For from the time that I went in before Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to his people, and you have by no means delivered your people." Okay, now we're on Exodus 6. You know, this is going to be a little bit of a weird example, but I once had a boss who said I was in charge of seating people, kind of like a hostess, but more accountable, right? And he told me I have to make him a profit of $1,500 an hour, and he would pop in at random moments to yell at me if there was even one seat empty. And if I wasn't moving the line quickly enough to seat people, then I was in trouble, right? And it was like, I can't make people eat faster. I can't magically make tables appear empty to seat people. There's a long line. It's busy. What do you want me to do? But he was such an abusive boss. He wanted so much money. He never wanted anyone to stop. Ever. Ever. If you went to the bathroom, he'd be looking for you. I know so many managers like that. You went to go potty, they were just looking for you. Like, where were you? And it's like, Jesus, like, we have a legal right to breaks. They wouldn't even give us breaks. It's a labor law violation. That's why I think it's so important to read these tales of old. It really is, man. So Jehovah said to Moses, "Now you will see what I shall do to Pharaoh, because on account of a strong hand he will send them away, and on account of a strong hand he will drive them out of his land." And God went on to speak to Moses and say to him, "I am Jehovah, and I used to appear to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty. But as respects my name Jehovah, I did not make myself known to them. And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their alien residences in which they resided as aliens." Make you think about that. "And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their alien residences in which they resided as aliens." So it's interesting because if you think about it, some people have used this verse to justify colonization. "And even I, have heard the groaning of the sons of Israel, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I remember my covenant. Therefore say to the sons of Israel, I am Jehovah, and I shall certainly bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and deliver you from their slavery. And I shall indeed reclaim you with an outstretched arm, and with great judgments. And I shall certainly take you to me as a people, and I shall indeed prove to be God to you. And you will certainly know that I am Jehovah your God, who is bringing you out from under the burden of Egypt. And I shall certainly bring you into the land that I raised my hand in oath to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I shall indeed give it to you as something to possess. I am Jehovah." Afterward Moses spoke to this effect to the sons of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses out of discouragement and for the hard slavery. They were probably, understandably, at this point, they don't really get that God is there, right? I've had people who've made my life difficult when Moses is actually trying to help them, but I've had people pretend to say they want to help, and they've actually made things worse, much worse, at work. But it's a tad bit different. But you have to think from these people's perspective. They don't really know what's going on. They're afraid. They don't want to be whipped anymore. They're kind of scared to the bone, right? They don't want to, get those lashings back on your bare back, and then the sand, is like getting in your wounds and the sun is bearing down. It's terrifying. How many people in the world live like that? You won't be whipped, but you'll lose your job and go homeless. So much power is placed in the hands of so many bosses across the world. They are their own little mini pharaohs. They're their own little slave drivers, right? And what's even more interesting is that there were Christian plantation owners who read the story of how God did not like how the Egyptians were oppressing people, yet they used to whip women till the blood was pouring off their backs and then go to church. There was preachers who had slaves, Methodists who had slaves. Think about that mental contradiction. Yeah. There were Christians who fought to end slavery, but there was still Christian slaveholders. And in America, there were Christians who did not speak up to free the slaves. They would go to church and read this book, yet they'd see children with no underwear on, working the fields, mothers with babies strapped to their backs, working in the heat, in the sun, and they would not feel anything. Wow. It's amazing. The contradictions.